Hello, you beautiful bastards. The BCA is back again with another video to share with you. Today we'll be talking about specifically screen printing. It's a method and a medium that I've been working in for about 10 years now. Got my first job way back when in the town of Noblesville, and learning from a very small business, kind of the craft. And in the course of those 10 years, I've developed my own equipment, my own method, and my own body of work that I will be sharing with you all today. So let's get started. The first piece I'd like to share with you actually is one of my most prized of all possessions. This table here is a custom built vacuum table in which is used for screen printing, and it is nothing more than some shoddily screwed together and caulked together wood boards with a MDF board on the bottom and a solid piece of clear acrylic. And this is not a standard thing. This is not something that you have to do, but I chose a clear surface just for aesthetics, but also for the usability of the material itself. Like, this is a piece of acrylic, and it's been sanded down, so it has a kind of a nice matte surface. It's super smooth, and it stays smooth. It's pretty resilient to nicks, but also you can see through it. It's pretty nifty. As you can see, there are all of these little holes here. There are a bunch of these little holes. So the basic idea here, never mind my dirty fingernails, is that this is a reverse air hockey table. Instead of air being pushed up through these little holes and creating kind of like a simple little surface for something to slide across, we utilize a vacuum. This is just a very small 1 or 2 horsepower desk vacuum that I have hooked up to just this wooden frame, and it's supposed to be an airtight seal, but I've had my setup kind of packed away for the last few years, and this is the first time that I've had it out since. So this is kind of a trip down memory lane. But the whole idea of this particular piece is to keep paper or a substrate super flat and super smooth so that you may be able to print on top of it using screens. If you haven't been able to figure that out yet, it's what it's known for. Screen printing or silk screen, or I don't even know all the other names that they use for it. However, this is what I use, and it's custom built. We have these hinge clamps here in which a screen can be held into place, and you can print one screen at a time, one piece of paper at a time. This is a lengthy kind of hand done process, and it covers a wide range of styles. This is something that I've gotten into professionally. I worked for a screen print company about 10 years ago, learning the process of garment printing, so printing t-shirts, but the whole process is basically the same across the board. This is just a fun artisan, not really a hobby, because I'm a little too obsessive to have hobbies, but this is just another service that I offer, another extension of my creative expression, and I use it as often as I possibly can. Screen printing is one of my true joys in the creation process. It is hands-on. It is a true meaning of the word artisan because of how just hands-on it is. So like I said, I got started printing t-shirts 10 years ago working for a shop in Noblesville, Indiana, and only worked there for about a year, but the type of shop and the type of owner that I worked for was like 3 years worth of experience crammed into one part-time job, which was just fantastic. I worked for a knowledgeable individual who was he was fair and, like I said, knowledgeable, and just had a good business sense in how to manage this industry, because it has a lot of different applications. For instance, this tote bag here is screen printed. It's not printed on this because this is meant for my preferred method of printing, and that's on paper. So I have a few samples to flip through and just kind of show off. Most of these pieces were done on this particular table. I had one previously, which was just a piece of 1/4-inch plywood with the same clamps, but there was no suction. There was nothing to keep things flat except for a spray adhesive. And I'm just dangerous enough to know how to use general carpentry skills to create these things, because the first board was very inaccurate and took a lot of gumption to keep things lined up, because I don't like doing very simple prints. I like at least 2 colors. I like to work for my money. Anyway, so here are a few samples of some things that I've printed. Starting out, I print holiday cards, or had for a handful of years in a row, and sent these out to friends and family, and managed to sell a few in various vendor markets and whatnot. But it's not just holiday cards. I would be commissioned to do jobs for people who had some kind of special event that they wanted to showcase. Like, this is a invitation to an open house. It's pretty in-depth. It's one of my older ones. This is from 2015. Right around the same time I built this press. This is a design from the same year, or the following year, and this was the last holiday card that we've done. All of them, well, except for the invitation, these two were hand illustrated and worked on in the computer and given a little bit of a flair. So most of my stuff incorporates some kind of a hand-drawn or crafted approach. The next few pieces I got here, wedding invitations, just 8.5 by 11 piece. And then here were some invitations that were sent out in just a simple mail. And this was a hell of a project to take on. This is a 4-color this side and 3-color on this side, meaning we had 3 screens to print this one side. And then we flipped the paper over to do a duplex print, and these took 4 screens to do. So this was printed like a newspaper image, which you should be able to tell. I don't know if yeah. So you see all the dots and everything. So this one image, oh my gosh, this phone. So we were able to get a full color image fairly rendered fairly clearly using this process, and this was done on a sheet 1, 2, 3. So we were doing multiples up on the same sheet. One of my most favorite pieces in my project. Here are a few single color pieces that were made as gifts for holidays. Pretty straightforward illustration and just some design work. Here's a piece, a 2-color piece that on a piece of black paper. One of my favorites. This is you can see it better, but this is a white and silver with a really nice laydown of this white, and this, you can't really tell in the camera, but the glimmer and the contrast is really solid. It's one of my favorite pieces as well. As is this one and pretty much everything from going on. This is a oh my gosh, I think this is like a 4-color print, 8.5 by 11. Working with the transparency of the screen printing ink, the poster ink, because it is very thin, it's very translucent. It leads to a lot of color layering and blending of things, so you can definitely tell in this image here that the green is used to indicate all of this the darker areas, and then we have some overlaying, and we just have all kinds of blending. I'm not going to get too close. The registration on this one's not that sharp, but this project was also a gift for holidays. It was rendered completely in Illustrator, so it's a vector image, but plenty of just hand manipulated effects going on. But focusing on the layering of colors, which is, I think, is the biggest thing or the biggest benefit of this particular process, screen printing on paper and using acrylic inks, you get a lot of range and a lot of just things that you can do with simple colors. This set here, the Rocketeer set, is a 3-color print, and each image is its own thing. However, those 3 colors turn into just a range of different things. So we got like a brown here in the gloves with the yellow, and then the blue and the red make this really nice dark shadowed purple, and this is all just done on press. It's kind of a gamble. You have to mix the inks really well, and it's getting into some level of chemistry and understanding. It's like baking. It's as close to chemistry as baking is, so with a little bit of color theory thrown in there for some kicks. But this is, without a doubt, my most technical and greatest piece, I think, in my screen printing portfolio by far, just because of the details, the registration that got worked in here. I am super picky about things being tight and registered, so I pride myself on being able to do that on my own handcrafted press. So this is the Rocketeer set, all about accuracy, all about registration, all about that color blending. This is a showcase piece, and I love it very much, and I want to print it again. It wasn't super popular when I ran it the first time a few years ago. However, Rocketeer is not really all that popular to begin with, so that's what you get. This is a very early print. This was done as a gift for my little sister. And this is a completely hand-drawn and rendered. And then I believe this is my very most complicated print that I ever achieved. And it presented a lot of challenges. However, considering my like I said, my standard for registration, my standard for color blending and trying new things. This one really hits the mark, but it kind of got forgotten for a little bit because it is such an early piece. This is definitely 2015, but it's one of my favorites. And this is the BB King print, Blues All Around Me, which is one of the very first ideas that I ever had when I started thinking about doing my own prints. So most of my stuff is usually developed as a gift or something for a client. So I have a lot of stuff, client work, that is more garment based, so I don't really have a whole lot of that to show. But this is like my wheelhouse. This is what I feel like I'm the best at, and what I want to offer people on a more ready basis. There's not a whole lot of screen printed poster makers out there right now because the market's kind of crazy and the world's kind of crazy. So I'm gonna keep biding my time but keep offering this because it's such a blast to have just these posters. Like, people have events and posters all the time, and there's a benefit to not going to Kinko's and having something that's a little bit more sturdy, a little bit better quality, and that's where I hope to fit into here in not too long. But hey, that's the BB King. We printed this in Akron, Indiana. Designed and hand printed by BCA prints. One of my final pieces to share is the Linen Brothers poster, which is an 11 by, it's like 12 by 19, something like that. 11 by 17 more than likely, but this is just a simple 3-color print with a black, white, and a, can't really tell, but there's an off yellow to give it a little bit of a texture. It's more photo based, but there's a lot of Photoshop work and kind of giving it this, I don't know, this vibe. I worked pretty hard to keep all of the details in the dude's faces, as you know, you can lose the detail pretty quickly working with what are called halftones. So you kind of zoom in on Tim's face there, and you can see that it's made out of dots like an old newspaper, and you can blow that stuff out really easily. But I'm, like I said, super picky and super anal about this, even the finest of details. You don't see it, but I do. And then the logo that I designed for the band as well, which also appeared on their t-shirts. So that is just most of the bulk of my work, working on this press itself. But that's just me. I'd like to share, though, just some of the other work that I've collected over the years from some local artists and some other just talents, to show you kind of like the range that people can achieve with the screen printing method. This is a Mike Clock piece, Stuffed Brain from Kalamazoo, Michigan. Awesome. One of my most favorite pieces. He's a cool, solid dude. This piece is from Mile 44 down in Indianapolis, or in that general area. They're from a few years ago. But they have this very hand-drawn piece or approach as well, which I dig very much. See, Mile 44. And these are pieces that I picked up years after the fact at Luna Music down in Indianapolis, Broad Ripple specifically. But this is local talent. These are local Indianapolis people. And so there are definitely makers doing this kind of work here. Shout out to Rush. I forget the artist's name of this, but just another simple 2-color print, metallic silver and metallic gold. And this Ghostbusters reference. And then just some more samples to pull through. We've got some work from Hero and Sound out in California. Awesome. Hand drawn. Look at this. This dude's nuts. This dude is crazy with how much detail he worked and how much line work he put into this. This is one of my most favorite pieces from him. Mark Brickey. Amazing. Okay, moving on, we've got James Flames, which is this fantastic piece, and which really, this was from 2011, so it's pretty damn old, and he's come a long way since this piece. But this is just, from the detail and the color and just the sense of depth in this piece, it's fantastic. I can sit here and stare at it all day. There's just so much to look at, and it looks like it's real. James Flames is known for having a very illustrative storytelling method to his work, and it really shows in these pieces. But this one is from Delicious Design League up in Chicago. Crazy talented group of people up there. One of the best groups of printmakers and designers around, because they turn out stuff like that looks like this, very illustrated, very crazy, and then there's stuff that doesn't look like it. Yeah, you can hardly ever tell what you're gonna get sometimes, but it's always quality. It's never not quality. This is a black or a red piece of paper, by the way, and it's mostly black. So this thing is covered from head to toe, bleed to bleed. Other people, or another group of guys from Illinois. This is Haphazard Studio. I was here or at the shop when they were printing this, and it's just fantastic from an illustrative level based down to just the very simple design elements that they came up with to designate when other acts are going to be joining these guys, or the main, or cabinet, the main group here. But let's look at this. Look at this detail. Look at the illustration style. Just the tiny little nicks. This is dusty. This is old. These guys are going somewhere, and it's packed to the gills with intention and love, and just those guys drive me nuts because they're just so talented, because they did this one as well. And this is a gold foil piece of paper, so the kind of iridescence that you see, that's the paper, that's not ink, that's the paper. And this one is very evident of Haphazard Studios. They have this just great ornate kind of solid Art Nouveau, maybe it's Art Deco, I can never tell the difference between the two. But then you've got these hugely just fantastic illustrated elements that are organic, and they don't look like anything else that you've ever seen, but it looks like something that you've seen before. And I think that's a really amazing skill to have. Then we have DK&G Studios. They're mostly vector, very kind of geometric, illustrator heavy in their execution, but their eye for detail and texture is off the wall. You can see the sketches, you can see the kind of nicks, the dust, the scratches in the texture itself. And this thing had the shadows, the shading on this is through Illustrator. These guys aren't human. They're about as robotic as these guys are. They're just fantastic talents. Everybody's talented. I follow, this is a Print Mafia, and they have a completely different approach to everybody else that we've looked through, even myself, like they have the cut, paste, destroy method. And just the way that they print, you can see there's texture from them layering ink and layering ink. They scan things in, they print it out, they scan it back in, they give it, its own kind of developed texture, and then you get results like this that just have an edge. It's raw. Tom Waits himself is just like that, and Print Mafia are always printing stuff out. Then we got some more Hero and Sound, and then I've got a whole bunch of other things, but let's move on to something else. Let's stop showing off collections and talking nonsense. So how do we do all of this stuff? How do we take images and take them and put them on paper? And how do we get things to production ready? Well, we've talked a lot about screens and screen printing and stuff, so I'm going to pull out and share with you some more of my setup. Let's clear out this junk. So what we use is aptly a screen. This is an 18 by, this is like a 20 by almost 24 or 26 screen, a 305 screen, which means that's the thread count. That's just like if you're buying like really nice sheets or something like that and you're paying attention to thread count, same thing applies here. This is just a silk fabric stretched over a metal frame and then glued down to heck, and this entire open yellow space is our image area, quote unquote. So what we would use is this substance that we call emulsion. It is light sensitive and water soluble. So we would be working in a dark room. If I were walking you through the entire process of how to prepare screens, that's what we would be doing now. But like I said, my setup is not completely realized yet, so I'm just going to pull out a screen that I've used in the past to show you what a readied image looks like. So you still see some of the yellow there, but you also see our stencil. Once we go through the process of applying the light sensitive emulsion, curing that emulsion with UV light, and then rinsing out what hasn't been cured with just water, you're left with this negative image. Negative as in it's reversed, not negative as in the mindset. So let's keep things positive, please. So this screen here I used for my old business cards, which I doubled up. So I would take a piece of paper, lay it down, print my color, then hang it up, let it dry, then bring it back to the press, flip the paper over, and so I would be able to put the front and the back on the same piece, and then don't have to pay anybody else for my business cards. So this image here is pretty standard. So you can see the detail. This is an old set, still got my old name, but it's still got the BCA Creative Consultant. As you can see, looking at it this way, it's a reversed image. This is screen down. And then if you look on the inside, and you keep your screen clean, like I do on this particular one, that is your print ready image, and that's what you'll be looking at for at least a good hour while you cram out a bunch of these business cards. So you would be able to take those screens and then you would hook them into the clamps here, which I'll do really, really quick. So they're spaced apart, just a good distance, and then you just have to screw them down, and this holds screens in place. Normally I would have a this whole process where I line things up and put my markers down, but since I'm not printing, we're not worrying about it. So we clamp our stuff down, make sure that it's not going to wiggle on us, but we have this, just this very simple hinge system. And then you're supposed to have, you need to have like a little piece of paper, just like a stack of quarters here, to give you some kind of an offset so that there's space between the press and the board or the screen itself. And then, this is really quick, really kind of vague. I have this counterweight system that we attach hastily and readily because it makes for good watching. We clamp our screen into place. Normally this would be over here because we would use our squeegee, but our weight back there will hold our screen up for us. So once we're getting through the motions and everything's lined up, we'll be able to print repeatedly without having to worry about having our screen propped up, having it fall back down on us, creating all kinds of mess, because this is a messy process. We use acrylic inks, which are pretty dang thick. So here is the signature BCA red, and it's like paint, but it's not paint. It's ink. It is a different substance. For all I know, I don't really care. If it prints, it prints. You can print with just about anything, given the right screen. You don't even have to use this kind of screen. This is a higher mesh screen for fine detail work, like I do. But you could literally use a screen door. Put a stencil on it, push some substance through it, boom, you've screen printed. It's not that complicated. You don't need any kind of more complex setup, because all it takes is just having the right materials and having a little bit of know-how, and you'll be printing something. Whether or not it's good is completely up to you, but you just keep doing what you can, I guess. Moving on. We use squeegees. This is a rather long squeegee that goes the whole length of my screen, because I want to print bigger images. I like to print posters, so I like to go the whole at least 18 inches. This is an 18 by 24 screen. I should be able to at least get a 11 by 17 print out of it, you know, which is often my goal, but I want to print as big as I can, take as much real estate of the screen as possible, and then print big, print good. So that is the basic setup. This is, like I said, one of my most prized possessions, one of my most prized of methods of creation, because just look at the stuff that you can create. This is all done using these basic tools, and in future videos we'll be able to at least go through like a process and show how these prints are actually made, but I'm missing a bunch of my stuff. Talking about like exposure units, I'll even show you how untechnical you can be when printing this stuff. Here are my exposure lights. Just two 500 volt shop lights screwed to a board that I used to have onto my exposure unit, which, like my press, was shoddily screwed and caulked together and had I have a UV free like a piece of glass that allows UV light to pass through it. These shop lights don't have their glass on them, because this is when it comes to exposing screens, it's all about using light, proper distances. This setup here usually is good for at least 18 inches away from your image here. So really affordable, super easy to do, and you can run out of your home. I did most of these prints operating out of our home, just using a hose and the proper materials. The emulsion is probably the hardest thing to come by, and the materials to reclaim your screen, or to clean your screens after a print run so you can use them again. Those chemicals are the hardest to really come by, and they're a little bit more pricier than anything else. But ink, paint does work. You just have to be mindful of it. But you're not going to get you're not going to get the same effects as using the screen printing ink. Some other stuff that I have before I wrap up here is my storage unit. So screens are light sensitive when they're not prepared, or they can just be cumbersome. So I also built my screen rack, which is mobile. Booyah! It's got wheels. It can fit at least 9 screens into it. It is super duper handy. It is not that bad for being shoddily made by somebody who does not know what they're doing most of the time. But booyah, if it works, it ain't stupid. So that's my setup. That is the basis of the BCA prints. Take care, guys. I'll see you soon.